Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. So I've been having a lot of reminders lately on how important it is to keep reminding others the importance of paying attention to behaviors over substances. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Paige. I am the other half of Till the Wheels Fall Off. My husband Matt and I have been together since we were 14. He's been clean and sober and in recovery for almost 13 years, and we hold space for spouses and partners of alcoholics, addicts, or even just those who portray narcissistic behaviors. We're different than many other podcasts or programs out there that you're going to find when it comes to addiction recovery and even the spouse's recovery, because, we're always evolving, and we think it's important to validate what spouses and partners have been through instead of telling them that they're codependent or need to work on their character defects and, just detach. No, we don't do that here. We go a little bit deeper. And yeah, sure, I believe in personal development. I believe that we can always work on ourselves, and I love to challenge my thoughts, and I love to challenge others with love. But there's always been a big piece missing in the recovery world when it comes to the person who is closest to the addict. And yep, we say addict here. That is what my husband calls himself. We have not changed that. We understand that labels aren't that deep, and we don't tiptoe around the real issues. So we're real here. We truly, truly want to help others recognize that this isn't the life that they have to live. I've seen so many people stuck in dangerous situations because they're told to be compassionate and have empathy and be supportive. They're sick. They have a disease, all the things. But again, what about us? Where's the support, the empathy and compassion for us? That's what we're here for. We validate, we educate, we empower, and we help you, the spouse or partner, on your recovery journey. Because yeah, we do need to recover. And no, it isn't about codependency. We're typically recovering from the lies, manipulation, neglect, abuse, and so many other things. We did an episode on this before if you want to go back and look. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about abuse for just a second. This isn't what this episode is about, but so don't turn it off. I'm gonna get a little bit deeper into other things in just a moment. But I know that abuse is a really strong word. Like, I get it. But it is an accurate word in many of these situations. And the quicker we open our eyes to what is actually happening and to look at reality, the better off we're going to be long term, especially if kids are involved. Okay, abuse can look like being screamed at, manipulated, cheated on, gaslit, lied to constantly, financially controlled, isolated, threatened, humiliated, made to feel crazy, or living in a home where you never know what version of someone you're going to get. This changes a person, guys. This will change you. And if we don't address this and see what's in front of us, we're going to become someone we no longer recognize. It's going to change your confidence, your ability to trust yourself, and eventually it just changes who you are. And that's why this conversation matters. So many people are familiar with the hotline, right? It's where people go when they feel like they are being abused and they need resources and they need help. And I don't think many partners and spouses go here because they'll say, well, it's not physical. But abuse is not just physical. I just mentioned different ways that people can be abusive. There is a spot on the website where they discuss drug and alcohol and the difference in, behaviors or whatnot. This kind of backs up what we try to help others pay attention to when it comes to behaviors over substances. So let me read this for you. Abusive partners often blame their behavior on drugs or alcohol to avoid claiming responsibility for their actions or to obscure the reasons they abuse. While drugs and alcohol do affect a person's judgment and behavior, they're never a justification for abuse. Your partner's actions while under the influence are still a manifestation of their personality. And if they're violent while intoxicated, they're likely to eventually become abusive while sober. Common excuses use to justify their behaviors is I was drunk, I didn't mean it. I'd never do that sober. That's not who I really am. Drinking makes me a different person. And I know this is deep. This is deep information. This is hard to hear sometimes. I completely understand that. But again, like I said, we're real here, and I really do try to help people recognize the reality that's in front of them so that they can become the person that they want to be. At some point, we have to stop focusing so much on why someone did what they did or do what they do and start paying attention to the fact that they did what they did and they do what they do. That's the shift. We focus so much on the why. Why are they like this? Why do they do this? That it really does keep you in this situation longer than necessary. Many of us will spend years trying to understand. We want to know if they had trauma. We want to know if addiction changed them. We want to know if they're depressed or if they had a bad childhood or if they have unresolved pain, if they, we want to know if they really love us deep down. And listen, I get it, guys. Trauma matters. It matters. It can explain why someone copes with drugs, alcohol, anger, avoidance, cheating, lying, or emotionally immaturity. Like, we can get that. But understanding is not the same thing as excusing. You can understand why someone became who they are and still decide you can't live with these behaviors. You can have compassion for someone's pain and still say, you know what, this is not healthy for me. You can recognize that someone has trauma and still hold them accountable for what they do with it. Because if we're not careful, we can become so understanding that we begin to abandon ourselves. We can become so focused on helping them heal that we stop paying attention to what all of this is doing to us. And if we stay in denial long enough, we start changing too. We become anxious, controlling, reactive, hypervigilant, emotionally numb, isolated, angry, hopeless, or obsessed with trying to fix someone who doesn't want to fix themselves. And this is dangerous, especially if kids are involved. Because guys, kids are learning what love looks like by our relationship. They're learning what is acceptable. They're learning what they should tolerate. They're learning what a relationship is supposed to feel like. And if we don't open our eyes to reality and start making changes, we risk passing this pain onto them. I'm not anti-marriage, guys. I love marriage, healthy marriage. I like healthy relationships. I believe people can change. And I know recovery is possible because I live it every day. I know what it looks like when someone truly heals from trauma and changes as a person because I've watched my husband do it. Now, that doesn't mean everyone will do it. If you've been around for a while, you know that we are not rigid black and white thinkers. Just because I say I believe people can change, it doesn't mean I'm saying wait around because everyone is capable of change. No, I'm sharing my experience because I know both sides of this. And if my husband never chose to change, I would have had to make a difficult decision to move on with my life and protect my kids. Because I know what it looks like when someone refuses to heal. I know what it looks like when someone uses trauma or addiction or disease as a permanent excuse. I know what it looks like when someone says all the right things but never changes their behavior. And I know what it looks like when the spouse loses themselves trying to hold it all together. That's why we talk about this. And this is not to scare you, okay? Because I want you to recognize that this is serious, guys. Your life matters. Your mental health matters. Your peace matters. Your kids matter. And you deserve more than a life spent waiting for someone else to finally become the person you need them to be. You deserve honesty. You deserve safety. You deserve consistency. You deserve peace. And if no one has told you lately, you do not have to keep minimizing what you are living through just because someone else has trauma. Both things can be true. They can be hurting and they can be hurting you. Those things can exist at the same time. We get asked a lot, how do you know if someone is truly changing? You know. You will know. You know in your heart if they are being sincere or not. I knew my husband was changing. I knew when someone else was not changing, even though they claimed to have been doing all the things. You're going to know. Your instincts will let you know. Now, I know you may need to be validated in how you feel because being in these relationships will have us questioning everything because the gaslighting will make us feel like we can't trust ourselves. That's why we have a program called Reclaiming You. We validate your experience. We walk you through building up the confidence needed to handle big things. We hold space for you. We challenge you in a loving way. We help you find yourself again. And this is important. Even if your partner gets sober and works on recovery, we have some things to heal on ourselves. Anyway, just check out reclaiming-u.com for more info on that, or head to twfo.com. twfo.com. That is tufo.com. All right, so back to my rant a little bit. So many of us are waiting for a magical moment where everything finally clicks, right? They think when they get sober, things will get better, or when they go to treatment, things will get better, or when they get diagnosed, or they start therapy, or they read the book, they get the job, they stop drinking, they stop lying, then I can finally relax. But a lot of people spend years waiting for change that never comes. And while they are waiting, they're missing out on their own life. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not sleeping. They're not working out. They're not seeing their friends. They're not working on personal development. They're not building confidence. They're not asking themselves what they actually want and need. Their entire life becomes centered around watching someone else, watching what mood they're in, watching whether they drank, watching whether they lied, watching whether today will be good or bad. And that's not living. At some point, we have to stop waiting for them to change and start asking ourselves what changes we need to make. Because even if they never change, you still have a life to live. You still have to take care of your body, your mind, your friendships, your finances, your kids, your future. You still have to become someone you're proud of. And a lot of us become versions of ourselves we don't even recognize in these relationships. We become smaller, we become quieter, we lose confidence, we stop trusting ourselves, we start accepting things we never, ever thought we would accept. We lose hobbies, interests, friendships, joy, routine, structure, and sometimes even our identity. This is another reason why paying attention to behaviors matter. Because if we only focus on the substance, we can miss the fact that we are disappearing too. The addiction isn't even the biggest issue. The substance isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue is the lying, the manipulation, the emotional immaturity, the entitlement, the lack of empathy, the selfishness, the broken trust, the inconsistency, the refusal to take accountability. The substance may be what gets everyone's attention, right? It's like that red flag, like, ooh, something's off. But the behaviors are what destroy the relationship. That's why we talk about this. Now, I don't tell you this information so that you can run to your spouse and say, see, I told you. You don't get to excuse your behavior because you have trauma or addiction or a disease. Y'all, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Okay, that's not helpful. And it usually just turns into another fight, another argument, another attempt to convince someone who is not ready to hear it. And I'm not sharing all this information so that you can diagnose them or prove a point or collect evidence against them, whatever. I'm sharing this so you can finally stop minimizing what you're living through. So you can stop making excuses for behaviors that are hurting you. So you can stop waiting for the perfect explanation, the perfect apology, or the perfect amount of empathy to finally give yourself permission to admit that something is not okay. Because empowerment is what we do here. And it's not throwing resources, podcasts, books, articles, and the I told you so's at your partner. Empowerment is looking honestly at your own life and asking yourself, how has this affected me? What have I been tolerating? Who have I become in the middle of all this? What do I need now? What do I want my future to look like? My job is not to help you control, fix, save, diagnose, or heal your partner. My job is to help you heal, to help you reconnect with your values, to help you trust yourself again, to help you stop abandoning yourself, to help you build a life that feels safe, healthy, and aligned with who you really are. Because at the end of the day, that is what recovery is really about. Now, I want to take a moment to shift for just a second because we hear it all the time. Focus on yourself, which, yes, this is important, okay? But I think sometimes people hear focus on yourself and turn it into ignore what's happening around you. All right, these are not the same thing. You can focus on yourself and still pay attention to someone else's behavior. You can work on your healing, your boundaries, your self-care, your confidence, your values, and still be honest about the fact that someone is lying, manipulating, possibly cheating, neglecting, yelling, or making you feel unsafe. If we only focus on ourselves, we can unintentionally dismiss or excuse harmful behaviors because we're told to stay in our lane, keep our side of the street clean, and stop worrying about them, just detach. But part of focusing on yourself is paying attention to how someone's behavior is affecting you. Part of healing is getting honest about what is not okay. Part of building yourself up is learning to trust your instincts again. Because the goal is not to become so focused on yourself that you tolerate everything. The goal is to become strong enough to recognize when someone no longer aligns with your values and have the confidence to do something about it. Y'all, I get this life. I know it's hard. I know how hard it is, but you are stronger than you think. Please remember that. Thank you so much for being here and for showing up for yourself. And remember that we've got your back. That's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.